And though we have less audience, but we are going to start because we have an excellent speaker with us. And we have Dr. Nitish Nayak and Dr. Anup Gupta as the moderators. So as I'm just giving over to them, I would request Dheeraj kindly put everybody on the mute, and the speaker and the moderators can please put themselves. Yeah, Avinash can put.
Yeah, yeah, I have
Yeah, okay,
unmuted
you're on.
myself.
Yeah, over to you, Anup and Nitish.
Okay, good evening, everybody. And today we have got a very dynamic and young Avinash going to present two very interesting cases. One is lot CRT, and the other one is idiopathic VF. So the plan would be like, he will present the first case, then we will have discussion for maybe around 20 minutes, and then we'll present the second case, and then we will have a discussion. So Avinash, it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so I'll just straight away start with cases. There's not much theory to be there. It's not published, and it's something which, after doing cases, I have found that there is some way to unify both left bundle of physiological pacing and how to augment it in some cases where even the physiological pacing is not enough. So one of the publication which is there is by Dr. Vijay Raman group, and that is about his optimized CRT. But the theory or mechanism of benefit is the same, that you achieve partial synchronization by either his bundle or left bundle, and then rest of what is left, you assess what is left, and then depending upon what is your requirement, you do the next thing, either put a LV lead or put a RV lead. So similar case was shown by Dr. Ullas. Again, that was a case of his bundle CRT. So I am presenting a few cases of left bundle CRT and how I have utilized CRT to optimize the left bundle. Now, this is the traditional his bundle CRT that we do, 25% EF, LBBB, CH. We just do a his bundle. We don't need CRT. We don't need another lead. Similarly, even if it is CRT-D, we don't need LV lead once just by doing a his bundle, your QRS is 100. So we don't need any additional lead for that. So there's no question of his optimized or left optimized CRT in this. Similarly, if it is a failure of lead, LV lead is useless in this case because it's obviously a failure of case. So in this case, only his is enough. But sometimes his is not enough. In these cases, like over here, pacing at the his, neither you are able to correct the HV interval, nor even you are able to correct the block. So you know the block is distal. And certain proportion of patient we find that we are unable to correct it by whatever we do on the his bundle area. So for those cases, we have come up with left bundle CRT. So, simple, we just do a left bundle CRT, no need of doing anything more. Either you put a ICD lead or you put just a RA lead and do a dual chamber pacemaker with this. So similarly, these are cases of plain CRT done with a dual chamber pacemaker. We don't need his optimized or left optimized CRT for this case. Now, where does it become important? It becomes important in a case like this. So this is the first case. QRS is 230 milliseconds, completely fragmented QRS. One, it's IVCD. You can't say, I mean, it looks like LBBB, but it's not typical LBBB. You see so much fragmentation here. At some portion in V1, it might even go ahead and look like a RBBB. So it's basically a IVCD. You cannot classify in either of them. And it is very fragmented. So left bundle pacing was chosen because the his bundle could not correct the block, and a good site was chosen on the septum. So as you can see, all the characteristic features of a good site are here. Let me just take my pointer. So if you see, we see a discordance in lead 2, 3. We see a discordance in AVL, AVR. These two are good sites that we are opposing the his bundle and where the his bundle bifurcates. So our superior inferior dimensions are okay. And then we get a notch. When we get a notch in V1, we know that we are not too anterior. So we are posterior enough, and we are not too high towards the RVOT. We are not too low towards the left posterior bundle or posterior fascicle. So it's a good site. So we introduce our lead. So once we introduce the lead, it's not something which you normally see when you put the lead inside the septum. So this is what we usually see when we are mapping for a VT in a scar. You see the EGM. EGM duration is around 160 to 170 milliseconds, and it's a fragmented EGM. You can also see that in this long duration EGM, there is a very sharp spike which is present. Would it be left bundle? It could be a left bundle potential, at least that was my hypothesis, because it looks very sharp and it was consistent. So what do you do next? Because this is what you're getting. Of course, I have not showed you the initial things that you turn it and then go inside, check the impedance, all those things were done. Now, if you see here, when we are pacing at slightly higher output, you are getting a W pattern. Now, this is not a classical LBBP or a left bundle pacing. This is not a classical left bundle pacing because you are not getting a R. Secondly, you are getting a isoelectric interval from the pacing spike to the onset of QRS around 40 millisecond. But overall, the QRS is very wide. It's 187 millisecond wide. But you don't see a local V over here. As you reduce the output, over here we have reduced the output, and you start seeing something which is like a selective left bundle capture, and you see a local V separated. And again, you see a distance of around 50 milliseconds. QRS is 194 millisecond. There's no point of measuring intrinsic oil deflection or LVAT over here because obviously it's too long. Now, what we see here, if we see here again, we see that LVAT is around 123 millisecond, and we see a V which is completely separated. So it's a local V which is present. So it's an isolated capture. It can be two things. It can be isolated capture of left bundle, or we might be sitting in a scar, but it was not a scar because the voltages were very good. Voltage was around 11. So it is not a dead tissue. This is for sure. It is when you're pacing at a higher voltage, it is capturing that V also. And when it is capturing that V, you don't see anything. So that means that it is not a scar. When you're reducing the voltage, you are seeing the V separated out from the pacing spike. So there is a local V which is present, which is at a higher output. That local V is not present. So that means that that local V is excitable. So it is, we are not in a scar, and which is corroborated by the fact that the R wave is very, very good. It's more than 10. And if you see here in the very next slide, what things we see at a higher output, it's a non-selective, no local V. At a lower output, it's a selective V, and you are getting a RBBB kind of a pattern. Now this pattern, if in a classical case you give, you get, if you are doing a left bundle, if this is what you get, you call it a left bundle. It's a left bundle pacing because it's a terminal R wave you are getting. But if you see closely, this looks kind of like his native QRS, but we are very far away from the his. Mind you, I have shown you pre-insertion. We are not at all close to his. We are, in fact, going ahead towards the apex. I'll show you the I'll show you the fluoro. So we are nowhere close to that. And the proof is that when you pace at a higher output, you are not getting this. So this is definitely not his bundle capture that we are getting. So it is a left bundle capture. And if you see, when you stop pacing, you see a retrograde potential, which I am calling a left bundle potential, which when you pace, you don't see. So you are capturing a retrograde potential, which was there when you're not pacing. So most likely it is a left bundle capture. And this is the kind of left bundle capture EGM and QRS that you're getting. Now what to do? You cannot accept it because the QRS is around 190 millisecond or 180 millisecond wide, and LVAT is 123. So what do you do? Obviously, you have to optimize it. How do you optimize it? Because we are not getting a complete, when we pace, we are not getting a good R wave, and we are not sure that a distal left bundle disease is not there. We decide to do a his optimized CRT. So what do? We first put a catheter in the vein of LV and see what is the EGM that we are getting. The EGM that we are getting is around 80 millisecond, but I mean, we can't be choosers when it comes to LV veins. So we didn't have any other vein. So this is a good enough. And you can see the difference between this myocardium and that myocardium. This is a very sharp local spike that we are seeing here. So when we pace here, we get a classical LV paced rhythm. Now, if you see here, and I will show you later the different LV paced rhythm, LV epicardial pacing by a free wall lead, you get such a fragmented QRS. So this patient definitely is having a lot of scar. And that is why this kind of QRS you are getting. So what do? We combine them. We do LV pre-excitation from the LV lead, and we do left bundle pacing from the RV from the left bundle lead. And this is what we get. So left bundle pacing along with LV epicardial pace simultaneous. We don't get a latency. We don't get a delay. So latency part is taken care by the LV pre-excitation, which we are getting by putting the CS lead. So we are not getting any latency, which we are seeing here. And rest of the QRS, if you see here, overall the QRS is actually not that wide. But because of the latency that we are getting, over here you can see very clearly, the actual QRS is around 160, 170 millisecond, but the latency is causing a tremendous delay. So to get rid of that latency, you can utilize this and to cover a more portion of scar. And this is what we get when we combine both of them. So QRS now is 130 milliseconds and LVAT is only 71 milliseconds. Now this is as good as LVAT as you get in a traditional LV left bundle pacing. Now this QRS is acceptable by any standard. You can also do more in this case. You can do a bipolar high voltage pacing. So you get both either anodal capture, you can call it, or you can call it a LV non-selective left bundle non-selective capture. So you can have two kinds of rhythm and you can fuse it with the LV. So you are getting a three-wave front by the same thing and you are fusing it with the LV. Over here, the QRS is as good. LVAT is 63 millisecond. But only thing is that in the V1, you are getting, you're not getting R wave. So it doesn't look good. I mean, it doesn't look very nice to look at. But otherwise, it's perfectly acceptable ECG. It's 130 millisecond. And on the other hand, if you don't do high output pacing to have an anodal capture and a septal capture, and if you do only selective left bundle capture and then fuse it with the CRT lead, you get a QRS which is 131 and you get a right bundle in the V1. Now, this is a traditional response which we normally look for in our patients of CRT. So this is how we can optimize a CRT in a patient of doing a left bundle pacing when your left bundle pacing is not giving you optimum result. Now, mind you, we always do a RV pacing and synchronize and check. And RV pacing never comes out to be this good. Because even when you're recruiting, let's say 30 or 40% of the conduction system, it is much better than utilizing a truly myocardial conduction by doing a RV pacing. So you will never get. Later on, I'll show you some examples where we have done all kind of pacing in the same patient. And you can see the difference yourself. So final QRS in an IVCD patient from 230 milliseconds, you can get a final QRS of 130 millisecond with a LVAT of 70 millisecond. Now this is a phenomenal result which is made possible by a LOT CRT and utilizing all the kind of tools which we have. So we don't get rid of the different tools and we utilize everything. Where does this come from? Just a minute. I don't know where does this come from. I think somebody put a mark on this. Okay, I'll go ahead. So there's a blue mark here. I don't know why. So this is another case, DCM, LBBB, left axis and 196 millisecond. Now this is not a classical LBBB. Now this lady is very frail, around 50 kg, at the most 45-50 kg, 60 years of age. On and off every month she was coming for repeated heart failure hospitalization. So we knew that we had to put a CRT in her. So we took her, and her as you can see, she is in flutter, and this is her, and she is conducting. So we thought that we'll cardiovert her also at the same time. And luckily for her, she came back in the sinus rhythm. So she was on and off. She was not a permanent AF. If you see here, it is a left axis. So whenever LBBB is with a left axis and with a lot of notches, particularly notches in the inferior lead, and you see a AVR which is not a classical AVR. You're getting a QR pattern, a very large R in AVR. So this is definitely a fragmented left bundle, or you can see a left bundle with a myocardial delay that you are seeing. We always try his bundle in all our patients. So this is a his bundle pacing with left bundle correction threshold of 8 volt at 1 millisecond. I didn't show you the initial his bundle injury current and initial his bundle electrogram. Now, mind you, these are all distal His. We are not talking about a non-distal His. And no matter what you do in this patient, we were not getting a correction threshold which was less than 7 or 7.5 or 8, usually 8. So obviously we cannot accept it. So we thought, okay, let's try left bundle pacing. So these are the two sites which we choose for left bundle pacing in this case. So this is again, I am showing you how I choose my sites. So lead 2 and 3 discordance to show that I'm not too high or too low. Lead AVL and AVR discordance, again to show I'm not too high or too low. And notch in V1 to show that I'm not too anterior. So this is a perfect site for screwing the lead in. So I screw it in. And this is what happens in the first site, just 2 or 3 turns and it just perforates, gone through the interventricular septum. I mean, it was so quick that I didn't even realize. And as soon as this happens, you know that this patient, particularly an elderly female, so thin, we know that we are going to have a hard time in screwing the lead here. Okay, so anyways, I pulled out and tried another side. And over here, I went exceedingly slow. So as you can see, I'm dedicated capturing the left bundle. And how you can see that is when I'm capturing the left bundle, I'm getting a complete RBBB. And you are getting a local V. In this patient, I'm sorry, I'm not able to give you the EGMs. But I'm getting a separate local V. You can see there is a isoelectric interval. So this is a local V. We are capturing left bundle. We are getting from left bundle pacing lead, we are getting a complete RBBB. And just leave it there, don't do anything, and it pops out on the left side. So this lady had a very thin septum. We can't do anything at a classical site where we do left bundle pacing. So definitely we are not going to try anymore. So, and mind you, when I say that it is a perforation, it is actually the lead is not going out there and hanging in the LV and roaming around. It's just that the tip of the screw shows in the endocardial side of the LV. So it is not a perf. You don't, in these cases, when we do the echo, we don't see anything because it's a millimeter hole that is made and it gets sealed off immediately. So it's just the tip jutting out and causing a low impedance and loss of capture. So what we do next, we went more ahead. So like I told you that previously we were more basal to have a more bigger bundle of left bundle capture. Now near the base, the septum is very thin. As you move towards the apex, because of RV trabeculation and because of the anatomy, it gets more thick because the apex and all other things start coming. So we move more distal so that we have more area to screw. And other thing which we can do is we can have a more slanting course. Instead of being perpendicular in RAO, you can be more slanting. So you will have more lead inside the septum to hold your lead. Because if you get perpendicular, you don't have much hold on the lead because the septum is thin. So by doing all this, we were able to get a left bundle capture. But because we are more distal, you can see here that we are getting a dedicated left bundle capture. And how you can see that? You can see that we are getting a terminal R in V1. So it is a left bundle capture. We are getting a RBBB, incomplete RBBB with a terminal R in V1. We are getting a QRS which is 160 and we are getting a LVAT which is 100. So definitely it's not good enough. So obviously you can accept it, but I would not do that when I can do something better. So you have already seen what we did. We put a in this case. Again, we put a LV lead. Yeah. So this is a LV lead position in the posterior lateral vein. Sorry, I cannot show you the EGM, but in this, the QLV was around 100 milliseconds. So, so this is what we get after putting the LV lead. So this is a LV bipolar anodal. So this is a LV bipolar anodal plus LV lead pacing, narrowed the QRS from 160 milliseconds. So this is the traditional pacing that we are doing, only pure left bundle pacing. And this is LV bipolar anodal with LV lead simultaneously pacing. So it is a epicardial LV lead plus LV bipolar with anodal capture. So we are basically having a 3-way front. We are capturing RV, we are capturing left bundle, and we are capturing LV. And the QRS has narrowed to 130 millisecond with the LVAT of 82 millisecond. Now what you can do here is just get rid of the anodal capture and you can just do a left bundle pacing with the LV first. So you will get, for example, when you do anodal capture, you get rid of the right bundle. Again, it's a very good QRS, but it doesn't look good to look at, because if you show somebody a CRT ECG with a LBBB kind of a thing in V1, even though you have narrowed the QRS from around 200 to 130, doesn't look good enough. So if you want a R wave, you can very easily get, just do a LV first 20 millisecond, and left bundle pacing final QRS will be around 130 millisecond from 196, and you'll get a LVAT which is around 78 millisecond, which is because of pre-excitation. So this is a beautiful result in a patient in whom we were just not getting anything, and we were also not getting a traditional position of left bundle. Now, this is another case. This is a case of a RV paced rhythm in a 180 millisecond QRS duration. So I'll just run through this. So this is a left bundle site where we paced, and classical things are here. And this patient, look at the EGM. This patient had so much scar. The EGM is huge. It's around 180 millisecond total EGM duration. And you can see two spikes. One is the pacing spike from RV, and then you see a very sharp spike. This is a left bundle potential. This I'm showing after screwing the lead. It's a very classical left bundle potential. And then you see, sometimes you see when you are irritating the left bundle, you see a left bundle ectopic. So this is a left bundle ectopic that is there. And then again, left bundle RV pacing and retrograde left bundle potential. So retrograde left bundle potential, left bundle ectopic, retrograde left bundle potential. And you can see from RV pacing to the left bundle potential, it is 40 millisecond. It is roughly the trans interventricular conduction time which we normally see, and particularly in presence of scar. What happens when we pace? When we pace, we lose that potential, and the QRS immediately narrowed to 130 millisecond. It's good, but the problem is that, okay, this was the site. You can see it's quite high up. So this patient already had a dual chamber pacemaker. So we went slightly ahead, slightly higher than that. So LV paced narrowed the QRS to 130 millisecond, but the problem was, again, no R in V1, very poor R wave in V5, V6. Now it is, you see V5, V6, there's no R. It doesn't, I mean, we don't see good LV forces here, even though the QRS is narrowed. Either we can accept it or we can do something about it. So what do we do if we want good LV forces? Again, we put a LV lead and check. We first put a catheter there to check how the electrodes or the EGM is. So you can put the EGM. So yeah, so this is the LV lead EGM. So when you put the LV lead, QLV is 121 milliseconds. So it's a very good, beautiful site. And this is the kind of voltage that you are supposed to see, not the kind of fragmented voltage that you see normally in the interventricular septum in these scarred patients. And when you pace LV, this is the kind of pacing QRS that you get on only LV pacing. So this is pure LV pacing. And you can see the difference. The difference between this LV pacing and the LV pacing of the first QRS, which I showed you. The first QRS, let me just quickly go to that. See this QRS, pure LV paced, the difference between, so lot of scar. This QRS versus this QRS. So you can see the difference. And when you do combined left bundle pacing along with LV pacing, you restore the R wave, you restore the left ventricular forces, you get a very good LVAT of 63 millisecond, you get a QRS, you get a R in V1, which is your classical partial right bundle voltage, and you get a QRS of 120 millisecond from 180 milliseconds. This is the last case I'm going to show. This is a right bundle. So mind you, right bundle cases, this is a very interesting case. Right bundles are traditionally no-go for us. Right bundle and a QRS duration of 180 milliseconds. And as you can see here, what is this patient having? It's something which I see very uncommon, maybe seniors must have seen more, infrahisian Wenckebach. And this case is very illustrative of how many diseased or how much diseased conduction system we can have in these patients. So the first beats conduct with a HV of 97 millisecond with the RBBB. The second beat conducts with a HV of 120 millisecond. And now because the right bundle and left bundle delays are coming very close together, we are getting a hybrid RB and left bundle, and we are getting a IVCD and QRS paradoxically slightly narrows. and HV is 123. And then we get a HV of 245 millisecond with a left bundle configuration. So this patient has right bundle abnormality. This patient has definitely his bundle disease, and this patient also having a left bundle abnormality. So this is a purely a diseased conduction system that we are dealing with. And these are very rare occurrences of infrahisian Wenckebach that you see. So both right and left bundle are diseased. And this was also seen in 2:1 AV block in this patient. You can see infrahisian and a simple infrahisian Wenckebach with just RBBB response. So this patient had all kind of conduction abnormalities that you can think of. So his bundle was clearly a no-go for this patient. We didn't even try his bundle in him. Although I have done some cases in which you can reverse his bundle pacing. You can reverse infrahisian block, but certainly not for this variety. So left bundle pacing sites, you can see the classical things. In this patient, the 2 and 3 discordance were not that clear because the QRS was very muddled. But still, you can see a AVL, AVR slight discordance is there. So site 1. Site 1, we have a left bundle capture. And how do you know that we have a left bundle capture? First of all, the QRS gets narrowed. And secondly, we have a local V. Again, you see a local V. And you can also see when we are not pacing, you can see because in a RBBB conduction, you can see a left bundle potential also. So beautiful left bundle potential, and when you pace, but you are not getting a classical, again, like previous case, you are not getting a R prime that you should normally have, because if your left bundle is intact below the site of pacing, and also you are not getting good RV forces, you are not getting good LV forces. So QRS duration is although acceptable from 200 milliseconds, we have come down to 138 milliseconds. But I thought, okay, let's give just half a turn more, maybe we can engage more left bundle, but it just crosses on the other side. So we have a septal perf. So this is the second site. Again, you see a beautiful left bundle potential in the initial sharp spike. And when you pace, you capture left bundle. We are pacing at a higher output, so you're not seeing a local V. Sorry, but when you pace at a lower output, you get a local V. But again, we are unable to get a R wave in V1, and we are not getting V5, V6. And basically, the problem with not having a V5, V6 is that when we are doing left bundle pacing, we like to see the LVAT. And without a good R wave in V5, V6, how do you check LVAT? So what do? We do a left free wall pacing. We put a lead there and see what's the QLV. QLV is 93 millisecond. And this is the pacing morphology that you see. You see a very broad QRS when we are doing a LV free wall pacing. And we also put because it is a CRTD case, we put a RV patience, RV coil also. So we can pace from there also. So we do everything. So on the left side, you see a bi-V CRT, traditional bi-V CRT with RV pacing. Left free wall and RV apical. You can see that you don't like this QRS. This is definitely broader. The QRS duration was around 160 millisecond. It's not narrow, and it doesn't look good. This is a pure LV pacing, and this is a combined lot CRT, which is dedicated left bundle capture with a left free wall capture. Now, as you can see, even though to best of my intention, I'm unable to restore the V5, V6. And the reason is to restore the V5, V6 or the LV forces, I must have a LV lead which is slightly higher than the lateral, instead of posterior LV, I must have a lateral LV or a anterolateral or slightly that side LV. But unfortunately in this patient, the LV lead was quite down. You can see over here, if I can pace. So if you can see here, it is quite down. So that is why I'm unable to recruit I don't know exactly what is the cause, why I am unable to recruit or having a good R wave in V5, V6. But you can see the left bundle, it's quite high. Another reason of having not having a R wave from left bundle pacing is that if you are pacing a left posterior fascicle. So in a left posterior fascicle, the first thing to get depolarized will be the lateral wall near the, if you are having a lateral wall first depolarization, you will be having a less R wave in V5, V6 as compared to if you are having a classical left bundle pacing with both left posterior and anterior fascicle depolarization. So maybe that is also one of the cause. So you can see the difference between uh, um, uh, so these are different thing. So if we do a pure left bundle pacing, so this, the upper ECG is pure left bundle pacing. In pure left bundle, so mind you, this is a patient of RBBB with 180 millisecond QRS duration with tremendous infrahesian disease. So if we do only left bundle pacing, we can achieve a QRS like this. Now this looks very good. It's quite good actually, not bad. If we get this in a traditional CRT patient, we'll call it good. But you are getting a poor, wider, fragmented QRS and no R prime. On the other hand, if you combine it with the traditional LV lead or a LOT CRT, here is what you get. You get a classical R prime. So this is, if this ECG you show to anyone, they will say that, oh, this is a left bundle pacing ECG. You don't get a R wave, I agree, but they are very well formed waves in V5, V6 as compared to what we were not getting in V5, V6. And the QRS is very narrow. Actually, the QRS was around 110 millisecond. So this is in a RBBB patient that you are getting. So these are, I have other cases also, but I will not go into these. So we have done roughly 10 cases like. Just last case I want to show you. This is initial case. This is my first trying to do lot. This is a hot CRT I tried after reading Dr. Vijay Raman's paper, and I realized the futility of this, because there's no point doing putting a LV lead in this case, because even without putting a LV lead, QRS is 106 millisecond. If you put LV lead, you get a QRS of 90 or 100 milliseconds. You don't gain anything much. So now we are not putting LV lead in such kind of cases. Just not putting LV lead. Just put a dual chamber pacemaker. But if we are getting a suboptimal response by either left bundle pacing or his bundle pacing, we definitely go for a hot CRT or a LOT CRT. It saves your day. I mean, we have had cases which normally we would not have thought of getting a QRS of 130 or 120 or 110 milliseconds, where we were able to get such QRS. This paper is already published. The published paper is of hot CRT, mind you. None of these cases which I showed you, all the there were 6 cases. I showed you 4. So none of these 6 cases his CRT was possible, because most of them were having infrahesian disease, very large fragmented QRS, and we always try his bundle pacing, but his bundle was not successful in these cases. So that's why we went for left bundle pacing, and then we optimized it by putting. We have done cases where we have optimized the left bundle pacing by putting a RV lead also. So that is also what we have done. So these are the, I mean, it's not a published thing, but it's my experience. Maybe with a few more cases, we would go ahead and publish our experience on this. So I would like everybody's opinion on this. Thank you.
Avinash, fantastic presentation.
Okay.
And couple of questions from my side.
Yeah.
Do you make, like, upfront, do you make a decision to do a LOT CRT or his bundle CRT in ischemic heart disease rather
yes,
than not?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that's, I mean, that depends on different institutes, but the kind of results which we have seen, we have done roughly nearly 50 cases. I mean, that's our protocol. So we go ahead with an open mind. We open one his bundle lead. I mean, it's not very expensive. If a patient is anyways going for a CRTD. So most of these cases which I showed you was CRTD or a CRT thing. And so yeah, we go ahead with upfront his bundle and left bundle. But there have been cases where we have failed doing either his bundle or left bundle, and we have done traditional CRT. So it's not that we don't do anything, but yes, we go upfront with his bundle and left bundle, and we always check. So it's not that we don't check the traditional CRT. So whenever we are doing these cases, because all the time we are having a LV lead, so we don't put a TPI. We always put our RA lead in the RV, or we already put a, if suppose it's a CRT-D case, we first put the ICD lead down. And we always pace and see that where is the narrowest QRS where we are getting. So we do that. It's not that we just go ahead with the left bundle.
So you mean to say like either ischemic or non-ischemic, you will go for the left bundle or his bundle in our
Yes,
patient
sir.
first
Yes.
rather than going for.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I mean, I have just.
So other thing, you know.
Yes, sir.
No,
Yeah,
go ahead,
Nitish,
Anup. Go ahead, Anup. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I mean, one thing that I've seen is like, if you have patients who have had previous MI, especially anteroseptal MIs, then or if you have a septal scar or something that makes you think there's an aneurysm, then maybe upfront echo really helps to decide whether you should be going for left bundle pacing or not, because echo really helps that way. And
Yes,
like you
sir.
showed that, thin septum, that helps you decide because if I think so these leads are about at least going about 8 millimeters if you
Yes,
have to
sir.
get that. So I mean, although septum often is about not more than 10 millimeters in this area, and you feel a little hesitant and screwing in when you in these areas. But I feel like you said, if you go a little distally, you
Yeah.
often get what you want. So
Yes.
my question to you was that how many of these patients had a previous anterior MI? I mean, because you showed some people.
Sir, most of these lot CRTs patients are all either IVCDs, very wide fragmented QRS. So most of these patients are post-MI patients. Only out of all these cases, only one patient was DCM, the second patient, that lady. Otherwise, all of them were post-MI. I don't have the data, how many of them were anterior and how many of them were other. But apart from that lady, all of them were ischemic.
So there are a lot of questions on the chat, Dr. Anup or Dr. Nitish, if you would want to take them.
Yeah, I mean, one is Dr. Yash's observation that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, we do measure the septum thickness. So most of the time, the septal thickness that we get from our echo lab is 9 mm or 10 mm. So usually 9 or 10 mm septal thickness is good enough. So that's why we go ahead. But sometimes, even though echo is saying 9 mm or 10 mm, it doesn't tell you about how tough the septum is. It doesn't tell you about the frailty of the septum. So yes, echo does help. Obviously, if a patient is having a septal aneurysm or a completely scarred and bulging septum, then we will not even think of doing a left bundle optimized CRT.
Yeah, that's correct. And plus, when you are putting the LVV lead, as you yourself told Vinash during your presentation, you don't have to go perpendicular. So the actual thickness of you have to go oblique. So the thickness of the septum, actually what you capture is more than a 0.9 or 9 or 10 millimeter.
Yes.
As an oblique, it becomes more thicker.
Yes. So that's something which I have found very useful.
Nitish, am I audible?
Yes, you are, sir.
Nitish, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
You're audible. You're audible.
Yeah, you were talking about the utility of the echocardiography to decide your approach. So I don't know. I think at least I feel it very difficult to predict that where you will be able to engage the his bundle or the left bundle just based on echocardiography. The thing is that even most of the patients with the anteroseptal myocardial infarction, in fact, his Purkinje system is spared. So I think it is always, at least it is our policy, always try first the distal his bundle, then we go to the left bundle, and then if we are not able to get a good QRS, then we think about doing what Avinash has shown you today, putting a left ventricular lead and try to optimize whatever best is possible. But of course, I think our experience is still very limited, and a lot of information is going to come when more and more people they do this kind of CRT and hot CRT. So I guess I think the best way would be that all of us go on sharing our experience, and we try to learn from cases done by most of us.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, the only point I was saying is it will not help you select, but it might help you understand whom you may not wish to do. For example, if there's a thinned out septum or a septal aneurysm, maybe you may not wish to go to the upper septum. You may want to go into the mid or lower septum.
Right, right.
I completely agree.
Avinash, one question,
But
one
overall,
question.
I think Nitish and other people on the mediation, it looks very exciting. The amount, the type of QRS you get with this, you can never imagine to get with the traditional CRT. We had a patient with 210 millisecond QRS complex. This was a ischemic heart disease. And we did the His bundle pacing in this patient, no LV lead. The QRS was 110 milliseconds, but that I thought was unimaginable before this.
I would agree with you, sir. For the His bundle pacing, definitely we see very narrow QRS, and it's a beautiful narrow QRS which comes with it.
Yeah, it's really.
However, talking about the entire scenario as we are today, for ischemic patients, for IVCD, for right bundle patients, yes, what the data which you have shown, which Avinash has shown, it's a beautiful data. I mean, I cannot imagine seeing an IVCD and such a narrow QRS. As a result, it is just beautiful.
Yes.
But traditional patients which are of a traditional left bundle branch block, I think CRT still stands there. But the patient with dual chamber pacing, where we are doing His bundle pacing, beautiful results. Even with LV dysfunction, they are beautiful results.
Vanita, there is a paper from the literature that with the His bundle pacing, they could correct around 74 or 75% of the right bundle branch block.
So the recent data shows the success rate of His bundle pacing to be around 90 to 92%, and it has undergone a curve, a learning curve of the operator as we underwent for CRT.
Yeah, no, I'm talking the right bundle branch block. Right bundle branch block.
The right bundle, of course.
Holy grail of CRT.
Absolutely.
And we all were reluctant. We were not very excited to do these cases, but there is a data to show that even in right bundle.
Yes, this is a paper from Parikshit Sharma, sir, where they have targeted right bundle, and the success rate has been 70%, around 70% with His bundle.
Can I make a point here?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
See, the right bundle is not that we cannot do CRT or anything. The right bundle, because the conduction defect is on the right side,
Exactly.
is not likely to benefit. So
Right.
even if you correct right bundle by CRT or whatever method you produce a narrow QRS or your success in terms of ECG, that will not translate into LV function improvement, because the problem was not the dyscrony of the left ventricle. So right bundle.
Dr. Parikshit's paper has said that in RBBB, the absolute EF increase what they got in that study of 37 patients was around 10 to 14%. So that's a very big.
That is a huge, yeah.
So, sir, it's
The most important.
it's very small study of 37 patients.
Very small study. So we need, any case we should be, I think we should have a larger study. We should have more data, and people should do these things as a part of a protocol so that we can collect data and have some meaningful answer. Because it's been happening for so long that we have case reports, we have small series, but we must collect data and do some randomized studies so that we can document benefit once for all.
Yeah, but that data is going to take time, Dr. Saxena. You would agree with me.
No,
I
but
mean,
it
it's
has
not
been
going to be
years.
overnight. It's going to be, we do have 2 years follow-up data. But the more you want to document that ejection fraction has improved very nicely, along with the narrowing of the QRS, it will take time. You will agree with that.
It's not happening. So it will never happen because it's not happening. There should be randomized studies started. I mean, 2 years is a long time. We can do hundreds of cases in 2 years in a randomized manner.
Okay, I think we should move on to the next case now. It's next case, Avinash.
Yes, sir.
But excellent cases, Avinash. Very good presentation.
Thank you, sir. So next case is actually it's a very old case. It has gained recent interest because I tweeted it on the Twitter, because Dr. Shanta actually posted a ECG which to me looked like a fascicular ectopic. And so to show Dr. Shanta about a idiopathic VF case that we did. And if Dr. Saxena remembers, this is actually his patient we did, I think 4 years back at Escorts. So this lady is a sudden cardiac arrest, and I have presented this case actually in 2016 IHRS or 2016 something IHRS. I had presented this case. So this patient actually had received ICD because of a documented VF and on a halter. So, and this patient had lots of polymorphic VTs. Because of that, it was thought that she might be having long QT because structurally her heart is normal and she was not having any CAD. Everything was normal. So this patient was kept on all kinds of medication. I remember we started all kinds of medication in this patient. And consequently, after receiving so much cortisone, her QT actually prolonged, which was not that prolonged to begin with. And then she actually became a long QT patient. But once and then there came a time when her episodes become very frequent, like every 1 or 2 months she used to come with recurrent shocks. So this patient, this is what we saw, I mean, when you interrogate. Now, this is a CAN2 RV coil ECG. As Dr. Ullas pointed out in the tweet that it looks like a monomorphic. Sir, I assure you it was not monomorphic. It was actually documented polymorphic. This patient had very early coupled VPCs. You can see the VPCs also in this strip on the ICD. It is very early coupled VPCs. And when they fall, they make this, you know, in this case, it was non-sustained, but then sometimes it would sustain. So this is how it would start. The V-sense, 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 and then suddenly very fast firing. And if you can see the FIB-sense, FIB-sense, these are very, very fast firing. This is like 180 millisecond fast firing. This we are not talking about. This is not a monomorphic VT. Monomorphic VT does not start with like this, with 180 millisecond or 320 beats per minute or a 270, 280 beats per minute. So this is definitely not a monomorphic VT that is going on. Over here, I agree that it is more stabilized. It is around 230 milliseconds, so roughly around 260 beats. Yes, localized micro reentry in the disease Purkinje cannot be ruled out, but I'll show you the EGMs of this patient. There were many episodes. So this is just one of the episodes which I showed you. So 12 lead ECG, you can see that this patient on a lot of antiarrhythmics, her native QRS was wide. This is her native QRS, it was wide, and her ectopic is narrower than her native QRS. Now these are very few instances where you will find ectopic which looks narrower than the native, and it is quite early. As you can see here, it is wide. This is ectopic is early, and the coupling interval is quite fast. It's around 280 millisecond and up to 260 millisecond. And many times what we were getting here was interpolated VPC. Like this is an interpolated VPC. So once you start getting interpolated VPC, you know that you are entering a dangerous zone. So so we put a catheter on the right side, on the left side. We knew that something is wrong with the left Purkinje system because of the EGM, and it looked quite high up because the QRS looks pretty much like a sinus QRS. So this is a His to RV decapolar. So you can see very faint His bundle signals here. This is a RV right bundle. So this is a RV catheter, and you can see the right bundle voltages. And this is the left bundle catheter. You can see the ablation catheter on the left bundle. You can see the left bundle. So this is a sinus rhythm. This is a sinus rhythm, and this is the ectopic. Now this is exactly the same ectopic as this. You can see the lead V6. So V6 will help you to demarcate which is the ectopic and which is the sinus. This is the sinus, no S wave. This is the ectopic, S wave. So this is the ectopic. You see the left bundle firing before, then it is the right bundle. And in this, the His bundle is not very apparent, but later on I'll show you others. So now this is a RV His. And this is the LV His Purkinje system. So this is the in sinus rhythm, and this is during ectopic. So during ectopic, it is conducting retrogradely onto the His bundle. So this is a very beautiful ECG, EGM. So in sinus rhythm, we are getting this. In VPC, we are getting just opposite, just reverse. And you can see there is a flurry of VPCs. So it's not that one VPC, it's one VPC, two VPC, this is a fusion, and then again it dies out. So these are classical firing or Purkinje triggers which are known to be associated with idiopathic VF. We were getting quite early, like this is a 75 millisecond early firing in the Purkinje system. This is again earliest His Purkinje system in this case was 100 milliseconds early. Now, if you see the reported cases in these idiopathic VF, the disease Purkinje fires as early as 70 to 100 milliseconds. This is a classical example that we are seeing here. And mind you, we might think that, okay, if the Purkinje is firing, then why is because the myocardium, why is it not conducting downgrade? So why is there so much delay from the Purkinje to the ventricular myocardium? See, the delay is there because there is a downstream block, and it's going back and then traveling all across the right bundle and rest of the His Purkinje system. So there is no conduction forward or downstream. There is no conduction in the diseased Purkinje, and that is why we are getting this, and then we are getting a retrograde conduction, and then we are getting a QRS utilizing the natural conduction system. So this His Purkinje system, which is producing this ectopy, is not conducting downgrade. So there is no downstream conduction. So again, this is a repeated thing. We were seeing continuously this kind of picture. 93 millisecond early. So you can see here that Purkinje potential to V in sinus rhythm. So this is a normal Purkinje potential. So it's the same site. During sinus rhythm, we are seeing a classical left fascicular potential. Okay, and you'll get a fascicular O. But during ectopic, the same fascicle is not conducting antigradely. So that means that what we are seeing here is not depolarization made by this exact fascicle. There are some fascicles there which are causing this this potential, which are not conducting downstream. So there is a downstream delay. You can also see a reversal of bipolar, something which is coming from between these two electrodes. You see two complete reversal there. So once we start ablating from that point, you see that, you see a flurry of ectopic activity. You can see the similar kind of ectopic activity, all with S wave in V1, all narrow QRS, and it keeps on going on till you give the ablation, and then finally it dies off. And then you have complete silence, even while ablation. So we have got rid of it. I had 1 year follow-up of this patient. So no VTVF recorded, no shocks, no ectopics of this patient. So thank you, and we can have discussion of this patient.
Nitish, Anup?
Avinash, nice case. Just wanted to ask you one thing, like, hello. Yeah, can
Yes,
you hear
sir,
me?
I'm there.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, Avinash, do you put any decapolar catheter or a halo catheter or a lasso catheter on the septum to map these PVCs, or just
Sir,
for
now
a 3D and map?
but at that time, sir, I didn't put. I mean, I just mapped with the ablation catheter. Actually, it's an old case, so I didn't even know that I would find it to be. It was not that I was looking for idiopathic VF or this kind of Purkinje network. It's just that we found it. I mean, I found it that way. So that is. But maybe, yeah, in retrospect, I should have taken a decapolar and investigated more.
So you said, like, ICD was given before. So, probably I would, I reckon, like, all the causes were ruled out. It was like by exclusion idiopathic VF, correct?
Yes, sir. All causes were ruled out. In fact, ICD was given once because she had fainted lots of times, even though her ejection fraction is normal. That's why the ICD was given. But all the time when we saw that all her episodes were preceded by this, and then we got ahead and ablated this.
Yeah, I remember this case. So it can happen sometimes that you don't know the exact sequence, whether like when you implant an ICD, the patient had cardiac arrest or had documented VF and cardioverted. You're not always sure that it is VPC induced especially the patient has a cardiac disease, has background ischemic heart disease or any other disease. So then that becomes less important to document at that time, and ICD is implanted even without that. But subsequently, when patient comes in follow up, and you see that most of the episodes are being preceded by a VPC, then certainly one can ablate VPC and reduce the number of shocks. And the patient can have shocks even subsequently, but at least if it is VPC induced, then the number of shocks can be drastically reduced.
My question to Avinash and Saxena both. Now, let's say this lady doesn't have any shocks for a couple of years, and the device then comes to the battery exhaustion. Would you replace the ICD or you not?
If the patient is completely normal and there is no background in a patient who has no pre-existing cardiac disease, LV function is normal.
This lady doesn't have a cardiac disease.
Yeah, exactly. Totally idiopathic. Then one can consider that option.
But sir, I mean, I would be very skeptical for a patient who has had recurrent syncopes. You have done ablation. I know there are some papers who say that in idiopathic VF you can do that, but I would be skeptical.
Yeah, we have some patients, we have at least 3 patients who have gone this, out of which all of them are, one of them never received an ICD, 2 of them received an ICD, and 1 of them, didn't get a ICD replacement, which was a very young guy. Touchwood, all 3 of them are doing well. But I agree with what Avinash said, that when they come to you see in the OPD, you do feel that you need to ask them to get an, because in some of the patients, they have shown that there is some sort of inflammatory cardiomyopathy that may come back sometime later. So,
if you do,
but I guess it all depends on how well you investigate these patients later as well.
Nitish, if you do their MRIs to find out whether there is a disease coming or there is a progression of any myocardial disease, if there's an MRI is normal, no shocks, I think then you can perhaps can take the risk of not replacing the ICD.
Yeah, because it's a primary electrical disease, so how far an MRI will be useful, you really don't know. Because that definition of idiopathic VF is continuously changing. Initially, there was no MRI, there were no PETs.
Right.
PET and MRI. But
There are
very
a lot
nice
of questions on the chat, Dr. Nitish, if you would like to take them, please. A lot of questions.
Yeah, so Dr. R.D. Yadav was making a comment about the previous cases that if you suppose don't have, if you do a hot CRT. So another reason for hot versus lot is that if you are doing a CRT-D and you put a his lead and also you have to put a LV lead, then that means that sensing, the ventricular sensing, because in generally at his you don't get good LV, RV potential, RV R wave. So in that case, in case of hot CRT, sometimes you would have to use the LV lead for sensing. Again, first of all, you won't be able to use quadripolar. Like we have used quadripolar in our lot CRT cases, which I showed you. We have used quadripolar lead in many of them because you are doing lot CRT. You can use the RV or the left bundle lead for sensing because the R wave is good, very good, always more than 10. On the other hand, if you're doing hot CRT, then you won't be able to use that lead for, particularly in a defibrillator case, you won't be able to use that lead for RV sensing or a ICD sensing. In that case, you have to reverse. So in LV port, you have to put the RV, and in RV port, you have to put the LV. But another problem that comes there is that unipolar pacing. So suppose you want to do unipolar pacing in, suppose your patient has, and another thing, you won't be able to use quadripolar lead because now you are putting LV lead in the RV port for sensing of VF. Now in that case, first of all, the bipolar use karna hai. Second problem hoti hai ki you can't do unipolar pacing. So for example, in bipolar, you are getting bad voltages in your LV, and you want to do unipolar pacing from LV tip to CAN. That you cannot do if you put it in the RV port. So there are some problems associated with hot CRT and doing hot CRT. So I find lot uh, uh, more forgiving, and it gives very good result.
Can I comment, Avinash?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what I want to say that if you want to put the defibrillator, no, defibrillator lead along with the LOT CRT or hot CRT, whatever you do, the LV lead, because most of the devices, except Boston or some other device, where you can have sensing ability in the left bundle, LV lead. So here, most of the LV lead, you have to put in the RV to have sensing for the VTVF. Because left bundle, if you will put in the left bundle port, LV port, it will not able to sense the.
Yeah, I agree, sir. But I told you the problems with that. There are two problems. First of all, though, you won't be able to use a quadripolar lead.
Yes.
Second will be that you won't be able to do a unipolar pacing from the output.
Yes, yes. That's why. So you have some problem of when you use ICD along with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think interesting comments about the last case, but I would appreciate, Nitish, if you could take some questions. There are a lot of questions on this case, the idiopathic VF case that Avinash has presented.
Avinash, they wanted to ask is that what was your baseline investigations that you had done at that time? Do you recall them? That was it really idiopathic in that sense? That echo was normal, but beyond that, what did you do?
We did echo. This I remember. Her echo was normal. Ejection fraction was normal. I don't.
They wanted to know whether you have done MRI.
MRI or PET, anything?
MRI or PET?
I don't think so.
No, already patient was on ICD, so MRI. I think there will be a problem even in
the ICD
no, before prior to giving MRI. They're asking.
Yeah, it's like the ICD was put in 2015. We did the case in 2016 and or 17.
And what happened to post ablation? What was your
follow up? No shocks till 1 year. I mean, till I was there. After that, sir was there.
Yeah, but where do you ablate it? How close were you to the left bundle system? Were you close?
I showed you. I mean, I can show you the EGMs.
You can see the site where you ablated.
Like Dr. Ullas was pointing out that it's very high up. I don't think so. It's that high up, because if you see here, the difference between his bundle point and the left bundle point. So I told you, sir, why the QRS is so narrow. QRS is not narrow because it is high up. QRS is narrow because there is a distal conduction block and it is going up and then around the utilizing the rest of the left bundle and the right bundle. So that is why the QRS is narrow. It's not that the site is very high up, because you can see here the site is not that high up. His bundle is here and the left bundle. I mean, this is the voltage that you get in the mid septum, somewhere in the mid septum, not very high septum on the left side.
Can I comment?
Yes, sir.
Patient with short coupled PVC, what I can make an inference that short coupled PVC should be ablated.
Yes, sir, it should be ablated.
Even if asymptomatic, because they are very likely to develop VT or VF and sudden death.
Yeah, agreed, sir.
With any frequency?
No, frequency. Yes. Obviously, I mean, it should be at least ablatable. I mean, if the frequency is 8% or 10%, then how would you ablate? I mean, we have to say.
Cannot, there has to be.
You have to have during the procedure, otherwise, how will you ablate?
Yeah, so you have
the procedure, it should come.
You have to have certain frequency.
And these are mostly triggered activity.
Right.
Delayed after depolarization and triggered activity. And if you see its baseline, there is an incomplete left bundle branch block, which does not occur in a healthy heart. There must be some disease which you may not pick with the echo.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What's the frequency of these PVCs, Avinash? Do you recall them? Like, were they very frequent or?
I don't, sir, they were quite frequent. I mean, it was not difficult to get them.
Really mappable. You didn't have to give drugs or anything to provoke the PVC.
No, sir. I mean, just being there was enough. I mean, you just stay there and it was so irritable that, you know, all these PVCs, like all these PVCs, all these EGMs that I showed you, we were not doing anything. Just just by, you know, being there, you are getting all these EGM. And this is exactly the same thing that we got during the spontaneous PVC. So this is spontaneous PVC, exactly same morphology PVC we were getting while we were just there. Although it was not that common, you can see like 1, 2, 3, 4. So for 4 beats, I am getting 1 PVC. So it was not that common, but it was quite fairly, like over here also you see that 1 PVC for 4 or 5 beats. So it was.
Can I have question? Where you ablated in the lab LV or RV?
So mid septum.
Mid septum means near posterior.
Near posterior fascicle.
Fascicle. But
Yes.
BPCs which are coming, mostly LVBB, late transition and left axis deviation. Some of them RBBB also.
This is the PVC.
This is if you see the PVC, it's LBBB and quite late transition.
So actually, it's so narrow. I showed you the right and left bundle electrograms both. So this is the right bundle RBBB electrogram, and this is the His2 RV, and this is the LV. So
Yeah.
because of that same thing, because we didn't know where it was coming, we put the catheter everywhere. So, but this was.
Did you map on the right side also?
Yes,
Like,
yes. I'm showing you. I hope my slides are visible. So this is what was happening on the right side during the PVC.
But it's quite. This is left.
The reason which my hypothesis for this, that narrow PVC and this kind of morphology, which I am giving, I don't know if anybody else have any other hypothesis, is that because we are seeing a very early ectopy, for example, this ectopy, this conducting downstream. So we don't expect it to conduct in a traditional classical left
Coming
fascicular
out from the
prospect. Yeah,
LV.
it's conducting retrogradely. It's going up, and then from the His, it's going towards the right bundle and left bundle simultaneously. So there's a downstream block. I mean, there's nothing.
No, this has been described in an article as it's been called as ping pong in the Purkinje system.
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm actually seeing it. I don't know if you can hear what I'm telling.
Yeah, I can hear you. So this is probably what is happening.
So
Yeah, this is that rare phenomenon in a normal heart. The mechanism is not known. I don't know. Have you read that article?
No, ma'am, not exactly the ping pong. This was my own hypothesis.
Actually, it's there. It has come, and I tried to download it sometime back, but I couldn't find it a second time. But it's a very interesting article, and they say it's triggered activity in the Purkinje system, causing idiopathic VF.
Yeah.
Like exactly like what you have shown. Very, very interesting. You can write it up.
Yeah, sure. I think I'll do it.
no fluoro image.
Sir, I don't have fluoro image.
Did you use 3D or only fluoro?
3D or 2D? I think we did it on 3D.
Any 3D image?
No, sir. I mean, it was basically based on EGM. So 3D was not much help here. But I am sorry.
Where in the anatomy, where is the septum?
Maybe if I'll try,
Septum.
but I'm very doubtful that after 4 years it will be there.
Okay. Okay.
What, Nitish? Any
Good,
comments?
excellent case. So if there are any more, if there are no more questions, I'll hand it over to Vanita then.
I think we have covered almost all of the questions. So thank you so much, Avinash. It was a great show. Both the cases I really enjoyed. So Dr. Saxena, are you there? You want to say something to Avi? I think he has logged out probably. So thank you very much, everybody. And I think I'll close the meeting.